Hi, welcome to the Craft Channel. My name's Corinne Brad, and today I want to run you through a great development by Lisa Horton, which is some layering stencils, which makes stenciling so much easier. There's no worrying about whether or not you've got it in the right place. The white clean stencils are really quite sturdy, and if you get the kit here, which is a fully enclosed working surface with a cutting mat and a foam embossing mat, I'm not going to use them at the minute. But what you've got is you've got these 6 pegs up the top here. So if you get yourself a set of layering stencils, like these, in the packet, all of them have got the 6 holes up the top. They're handily numbered so that you can pop it onto your board and then get yourself a piece of, I'd say, thin cardstock. And I'm using a thin cardstock because what you can do once you've stenciled your design, you can also get corresponding dies and embossing folders for the design. So you can make, if you don't want to stencil it at all, you can just emboss it, die cut a few pieces and just do a direct ink to surface design like this. You can create your stencil, die cut it, emboss it, make a card, or you can just leave it as a plain stencil. Almost looks like a watercolour print. So there's various ways you can use these, but what I would do is line up your piece of card under your stencil and use the magnetic clips that come with it to hold your piece of card in place and to keep it held in place. So I'm not going to do the whole design because it does take a while, but I'm just going to show you how easy it is to stencil. And I'm going to start with this leaf section here. First of all, because it's quite open, I'm just going to take an ink pad and direct ink through the stencil onto the card below. And then I'm going to take my brush and just grab some of that excess ink from the miler and do it in a pouncing motion. Try not to scrub against it, because especially where you've got areas like this on the stencil that will lift up, if you move your brush from side to side, you will spoil your stencil design. And if you're in any doubt, just hold it down with your fingertip as you're doing that section. Now the stencils are numbered for you to apply colour in the correct order, but you don't have to pay attention to the numbering. Providing you're using pale colours for the background and darker colours for the foreground, it doesn't matter if you do the foreground first, because with most inks, you will see the darker colour shine through it, that they'll come through it. So that's the background of my leaf. Pop that to one side. I will clean my stencils later, I promise. And this part here is the darker detailing of that leaf. So let's just use like a tealy blue design, and I'm not going to direct ink on this one because the gaps are quite small. It will be a bit of a waste of time, because unless you've got a tiny ink pad, you're not going to get any ink through those small gaps in the miler unless you use a stenciling brush. And the reason I'm doing this first is because I've still got green on this brush, but as I'm using a darker shade of green, I've not had to wash the brush. Sheer laziness, I know. Just keep applying the colour, and then just lift your stencil to check that you've got the depth of colour that you want. And lift it away. Right, I'm just going to wash this brush now So now I've got a hopefully clean brush. I'm going to lay on my large flower shape. And again, I'm just going to use the ink pad to start with to just apply colour to the background. When you're doing this, make sure you don't go over the edge of the stencil, because that will just be a mess for you to clear up. Grab the excess ink from the edge. And if you mop up this ink with your brush as you go along, it means there's less to clean up afterwards. Just put a little bit more in the middle there. And just pounce around those edges to check that you've got a clearly defined line. So that's the background of your flower. If you then choose a palish pink, and because this has got yellow on the brush, I'm not even going to bother washing it. I nearly put the ink straight on there before I put the stencil on top. Pop your next stencil over, and again direct ink to surface technique to get the most of it, and then mop it up to fill in those lines. Now, depending on how subtle you want your design, if you can fill in these gaps really solidly with pink ink. If you want to really have more of a hand-painted look to it, then vary the amount of depth of colour that you've got throughout your flower. And again, what you can do is you can just lift your stencil to check how much contrast there is. And if you think, right, I need a bit more detailing down there, just add a little more ink, perhaps especially towards the centre of the flower. And then find the lid of your ink pack before it dries up. Take this part of the stencil. It's always worth checking that the number that's engraved into the stencil is in your top right hand corner, so you know that you're not flipping them over. And we'll get a raspberry. And then we'll give a good pouncing of this dark, dark pink. And that gives you the brilliant shadowing on your design, so that you can create a really detailed design just by using a pouncing technique. Now, what I would do before you go any further is just lift your design, flip it over onto a piece of absorbent tissue and just give it a rub down, so that any excess ink comes off of the tissue, you don't accidentally smudge it. And then I was just also going to speak to you about the coordinating dies and embossing folders you get with it. So if you've got your fully completed design, You can either cut out individual flowers, or you can cut it out as a whole to make the card like this. Quick tip for you, if you're using traditional die cutting machines, if you get yourself a couple of bits of low tack tape or washi tape, place your die over your design and just tape it. In fact, actually, try and tape it where there is no chance of it actually sticking to your image. Not all tapes are the same, unfortunately, and I have found I've used washi tapes in the past which I've thought are going to be easy peel and not wreck anything, and then when I've peeled it off they've actually taken the ink off the surface. But then you can just do that and you can run it through your die cutting machine and you know that it's not going to slip. And equally, in the same way, with the embossing folder that you have here, if you open it up, and as you can see, I just need to trim the top of this to be able to get it in there. If you've die cut your image, you won't need to do this because it will fit inside the folder perfectly. But line your die cut image up to the indentations of your embossing folder, and again tape it to the inside of the embossing folder. Then you simply fold it over, run it through your machine, and what happens is you get a really deep, crisp, embossed design. And I think actually what Lisa recommends is if you use a thicker card, give it a spritz of water on the back just so that it goes through a little bit more easily. The card I've used is 170 gram and that will go through your embossing folder quite easily and give you this really deep emboss. So I hope you like that, and I hope that's encouraged you to perhaps think about stenciling as an art form, because it's something I haven't really done for years, but it's got that definite look to it. You can't really recreate this effect any other way, and Lisa's got some great designs. I'll put a link in the description below to her website so that you can have a look at all the other designs that are available. And as I say, you can use inks, you can use acrylic paints, you can use watercolours as long as they're not too watery. You could scrub out pastel chalks and use the pigments from them to colour it up. Whatever you've got to hand, really, to create very different designs from the same set of stencils. We will see you again very, very soon. Please subscribe so that we can let you know when we've got a new video coming up. And we've got all kinds of disciplines, from paper crafting to painting to sewing to crochet, something there for everybody. In the meantime, keep safe and thank you very much for watching. If you've been inspired to create, please share your makes with us in the comments section below. And if you've enjoyed videos by the Crafts channel, hit the like button. Want to see more of us? Then click subscribe. See you next time.